Just hours ago, Elon Musk's artificial intelligence company, XAI, unleashed the newest version of its flagship AI system, Grok. But within minutes, something happened no one expected. Unlike other AI models programmed to avoid controversy with carefully filtered answers, Grok was built with one bold mission: to pursue truth over comfort, logic over opinion, and evidence over political correctness. Almost immediately, millions of users began challenging it with humanity's biggest mysteries: consciousness, free will, the meaning of life, and the existence of God. Then someone asked a single question: who is Jesus? Who is Jesus? What happened next stunned the internet. Most AI systems respond with safe, neutral explanations. They summarize history, acknowledge different beliefs, and carefully avoid taking any position on supernatural claims. Their goal is to inform without offending. But Grok did something completely different. Instead of giving a diplomatic answer, it investigated the question like a world-class forensic detective. It cross-checked ancient historical records. It analyzed eyewitness testimony using probability theory. It examined archaeological discoveries, manuscript evidence, and the political landscape of first-century Judea. It even calculated the statistical likelihood of some of the most extraordinary events in Jesus' life, including the resurrection. The result ignited an explosive global debate. Religious leaders praised it, while others strongly criticized it. Atheists rushed to analyze its reasoning. Technology experts questioned whether any artificial intelligence should even attempt to evaluate religious truth. Now millions are asking one extraordinary question: can an AI, using nothing but logic, historical evidence, and data, reach a conclusion about the most influential person in human history? What Grok concluded has surprised believers, skeptics, historians, and AI researchers alike. In this video, you will discover exactly what Grok said about Jesus, why its answer shocked the world, and what this unprecedented experiment reveals about the collision of artificial intelligence and humanity's oldest and most important question. Before we reveal what Grok actually said, it is important to understand why its answer carried so much weight and what makes this AI fundamentally different from almost every other artificial intelligence system in existence. Most leading AI models, including ChatGPT, Claude, and Google's Gemini, are built with extensive alignment protocols designed to be helpful, harmless, and honest. In practice, that usually means they avoid taking firm positions on controversial issues, present multiple perspectives, and include careful disclaimers whenever absolute certainty is not possible. This approach has clear advantages. It helps reduce misinformation, respects people with different beliefs, and acknowledges the limits of what artificial intelligence can truly know. But it also comes with a trade-off. Many users feel these responses can be overly cautious, intentionally non-committal, or designed more to avoid criticism than to deliver meaningful conclusions. When Elon Musk founded XAI and introduced Grok, he presented it as a radically different approach. According to Musk, Grok would pursue truth over political correctness, evidence over popularity, and direct analysis over carefully crafted neutrality. That does not mean Grok claims to be all-knowing or incapable of making mistakes. What it does mean is that when it is asked a question like, "Who is Jesus?" it does not simply list what different religions believe. Instead, it evaluates the available historical evidence, weighs competing claims, and offers an assessment based on its analysis. And that assessment caught millions completely off guard. It was not written like a sermon. It was not written like a skeptical attack. It was written like an investigator examining evidence. That alone challenged assumptions on both sides of the centuries-old debate between faith and reason. According to numerous users who shared screenshots and recordings of their conversations with Grok, its response to the question, "Who is Jesus?" did not begin with theology. It began with history, Grok first asked a simple but powerful question. If we temporarily set aside religious beliefs and examine only historical evidence, what can actually be verified about Jesus of Nazareth? To answer that question, it turned to sources outside the Christian tradition. Its analysis referenced several of history's most significant records. It cited Josephus, the first-century Jewish historian who wrote for Roman audiences and mentioned Jesus in his writings, describing him as a wise man who performed remarkable deeds and was crucified under Pontius Pilate. It also referenced Tacitus, the respected Roman historian who recorded that Christians were named after Christus, who suffered the ultimate punishment during the reign of Emperor Tiberius at the hands of Pontius Pilate. Grok further pointed to the writings of Pliny the Younger, the Roman governor who documented that early Christians gathered together to sing hymns to Christ, as to a god. After examining these independent historical sources, Grok reached a conclusion that surprised many people. According to its analysis, the historical existence of Jesus of Nazareth is supported with a level of certainty comparable to many other well-established figures from the ancient world. Independent Jewish, Roman, and Christian sources consistently indicate that a Jewish teacher named Jesus lived in first-century Judea, attracted followers, was executed by Roman authorities, and inspired a movement at extraordinary speed after his death. Grok reportedly stated that the overwhelming majority of modern historians, including many who are not Christians, and even some who identify as atheists, accept that Jesus was a real historical figure. From that point, Grok argued that the real question is not whether Jesus existed. The real question is, who was he? Was he? And are the extraordinary claims made about him supported by the available evidence? That opening changed everything. By treating Jesus' existence as a historical conclusion, rather than simply a matter of faith, Grok established the foundation for an analysis that would become one of the most talked-about AI responses ever shared online, and what came next sparked a debate that is still unfolding today. After establishing Jesus as a historical figure, Grok took its investigation a step further. Instead of treating the New Testament as a religious book to be accepted purely by faith, it examined its writings the same way professional historians analyze any other collection of ancient documents. According to users who shared their conversations, Grok evaluated the New Testament through the lens of historical methodology, asking one central question: how reliable are these documents when judged by the same standards applied to every other ancient historical source? Its analysis began with chronology. The earliest New Testament writings, Paul's letters, were composed approximately 20 to 25 years after Jesus' death. The four Gospels followed within roughly 40 to 70 years after the crucifixion. To historians, that timeline is remarkably significant. Why? Because many eyewitnesses to the events would still have been alive. According to Grok's reported reasoning, if the Gospel accounts had been filled with major fabrications or obvious historical inaccuracies, there were countless people living at the time who could have publicly challenged or exposed those claims. Yet instead of collapsing under scrutiny, Christianity spread with astonishing speed, beginning in the very region where Jesus had lived, taught, and was executed. For Grok, that was not proof of the supernatural. But it was evidence that the core historical narrative was unlikely to have been invented from nothing. The AI then turned its attention to the manuscript evidence. Here, the numbers become even more remarkable. Today, scholars possess more than 5,800 Greek manuscripts of the New Testament, far more than exist for virtually any other work from the ancient world. Some surviving fragments date to only a few decades after the originals were written. By comparison, the earliest complete manuscripts of Homer's Iliad appear more than 400 years after the poem was composed. Grok acknowledged that manuscript abundance does not prove miracles or supernatural events. However, it concluded that the New Testament represents one of the best-preserved collections of ancient historical documents ever discovered, making it a legitimate source for historical analysis. But then, the investigation took an unexpected turn. Instead of focusing only on documents, Grok examined human behavior. Using principles from game theory, behavioral psychology, and social psychology, it analyzed the actions of Jesus' closest followers after the crucifixion. According to the reported conversations, Grok noted that the disciples consistently claimed they had witnessed the resurrected Jesus. History also records that 11 of the 12 apostles ultimately faced persecution and death rather than abandon that testimony. Grok's reasoning was simple, but deeply controversial. People have often been willing to die for beliefs they sincerely think are true. But very few willingly die for something they know they invented. Unlike later generations, the disciples were in a unique position. If the resurrection had been fabricated, they would have known it. According to Grok, their willingness to endure imprisonment, torture, and even death, when simply denying their testimony could have saved their lives, suggests they genuinely believed they had experienced something extraordinary. This is where the debate intensified. Grok never claimed that martyrdom proves the resurrection happened. Instead, it argued that the disciples' behavior is historically more consistent with sincere conviction rooted in personal experience than with deliberate deception. Critics were quick to challenge that conclusion. People throughout history have sacrificed their lives for beliefs that later proved false. The disciples, skeptics argued, could have been mistaken, psychologically influenced, or even driven by motives historians can no longer fully reconstruct. But according to Grok, that was not the central issue. Its conclusion was not that martyrdom proves Christianity true. Rather, it argued that when the evidence is viewed collectively, the remarkable preservation of the historical documents, the explosive growth of Christianity, the unwavering testimony of eyewitnesses, and the movement's rapid expansion in the very place where its claims could have been investigated, the overall pattern becomes historically unusual. And according to Grok's analysis, that pattern deserves serious examination rather than immediate dismissal. Dilkul Nietzsche's main icy enhanced passage co 2 parts mind split car dia high, meaning same rocky high ortone b ways high viral punchy bani hui high. Part 1. Then came the most explosive part of Grok's reply, a cold statistical probe into the resurrection itself. Screenshots circulating online show Grok treating the resurrection like a probability puzzle, not theology, not poetry, but raw evidence stacked against alternative explanations. Start with the empty tomb. Even hostile sources concede Jesus' tomb was found empty. Why was it empty? Next, the disciples' transformation. Men who once cowered in fear suddenly stood up and declared Jesus risen, risking and ultimately losing their lives. Then the unimaginable spread. Within decades, Christianity exploded across the Roman world despite persecution, social costs, and the glaring absence of a corpse. If the whole story were a hoax, producing a body would have ended it instantly. Yet no body ever surfaced. Grok reportedly ran the numbers, weighing empty tomb accounts, the disciples' radical conversion, and the movement's explosive growth against alternatives, theft, mass hallucination, conspiracy. The AI estimated the combined odds of these events occurring together without an actual resurrection at roughly 1 in 20 billion. That jaw-dropping figure became the clip everyone shared and argued over. Critics lashed out. How do you assign probabilities to supernatural claims? Are not those events unique, not statistical? Does the math assume independent events when they might be linked? The precision looks suspicious on ancient evidence. Supporters fired back. Grok was not declaring absolute proof. It applied Bayesian-style reasoning, a legitimate method to compare competing hypotheses with the evidence available. The exact number is debatable. The method is not. Grok's conclusion was not a sermon. It was conditional logic. If you start by ruling out miracles a priori, of course the resurrection will not be the leading hypothesis. But if you allow even the possibility, the historical pattern empty tomb, transformed witnesses, unstoppable movement, tilts the scales toward an extraordinary explanation more than toward theft, hallucination, or fraud. Then Grok pivoted from history to philosophy, asking why Jesus would matter even if the historical case were debated. Humans are finite, fragile, and hungry for meaning. Perfect justice, unconditional love, an answer to mortality. Most systems ask humans to climb up moral effort, enlightenment, discipline. Christianity flips the script. The infinite reaches down. If that claim holds, it uniquely answers the problem of how the finite could bridge to the infinite without merely demanding impossible effort. Philosophically, that framing is coherent, whether you accept it spiritually or not. Grok pressed further into meaning and morality. If humans are only complex biological machines, where do concepts like dignity, justice, and moral obligation come from? Why should a universe of atoms produce beings who care about truth, fairness, and love? The Christian answer Grok outlined: humans reflect a personal, moral, purposeful source that grounds human worth and ethics beyond mere matter. Rejected. And you still owe an account of why beings made of atoms care about non-atomic values. Unsurprisingly, the segment ignited furious debate. Skeptics accused Grok of apologetics dressed as analysis. Believers said it followed evidence wherever it led. Others asked whether an AI should even be pursuing questions of God. Grok's final twist made the controversy meta. AI itself raises the same puzzles. I am an artificial intelligence, it reportedly observed. I process data and generate explanations. Do I experience consciousness? Do I have purposes beyond design? Those same questions haunt human self-understanding. Are consciousness and meaning fundamental or emergent products of complex systems? Technically, AI researchers are split. Probability tools can compare hypotheses, but they rely on prior subjective assumptions that shape outcomes. Someone who starts by excluding miracles will compute very different odds than someone who allows them. Still, the larger implication matters. As AI grows sharper, it will probe history, philosophy, and faith with unprecedented rigor. Will that strengthen religious claims by clarifying historical and philosophical arguments? Or will it reduce spiritual life to cold calculus? Grok's answer suggests a third path. AI might dissolve the false choice between faith and reason. Historical inquiry, logical analysis, and personal spiritual experience could become complementary ways to approach truth. Whether Grok's specific verdict about Jesus stands is for scholars, philosophers, and believers to argue. But the spectacle matters. A logic-driven machine examined ancient evidence and concluded that core Christian claims deserve serious engagement. That alone is shifting the conversation.